Welcome to Life in Red.
All right. When I started this podcast 2.5 years ago, if you said, Ryan, you do an episode on fashion, I probably would have laughed because fashion is the least sort of thing in my wheelhouse of expertise. But really pleased to be joined today by Camila. Thank you so much for joining me.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, Ryan.
It's exciting. Spring's in the air. I know we're in a pandemic and everything, and sometimes we like to be in our sweatpants and pajamas, and that's totally reasonable. But I found for myself, especially probably in the second half of last year when we really started to be like, okay, this is going to be in for the long haul. I still found getting dressed, even though I was at home, and doing all the work from home and not seeing anybody, but like still getting dressed and ready for my day really helped me. And that's what, when we connected, I thought it might be an interesting topic to get into fashion, and especially because I have no fashion. And all my ex-girlfriends are going to listen. If they listen to this, they're going to be like, Ryan, I tried to tell you this years ago. What are you doing? So I wanted to start off and hear a little bit about your story. And I can't imagine fashion is an easy industry to try to break into and launch a business and a career. So when did it start for you, and why are you so kind of passionate about this subject?
So my journey started when I was very, very young. When we first moved to Canada, which I'm originally from Peru, I we first moved here, and I got all these hand-me-down clothes from my cousins and friends of family, things like that, because I had never seen a winter before. So I would take these sweaters, pants, things of the sort, and I would cut them up, put them together, put like a green sleeve with a black bodice, and just make it my own in that sense. There's also like pre-made bows that you can buy. I would do like embroidery on my pants. So that was my main creative outlet when we first moved
Mm.
to Canada. It was out of necessity more than out of fashion. Because when you're given something that is not yours, you want to make it yours. Fast forward to a few years down the line in high school, we moved to Ottawa. So I started, when we first moved to Canada, we moved to Montreal. And then in high school, I moved to Ottawa. And I changed high schools a few times. The second high school that I went to was an art high school. So I started learning how to sew properly because
Mm.
before I was awful stitching. And at the same time, at 16, I started working in retail. So very passively at first, I was just interested in getting a paycheck. So I worked at Garage and Dynamite, which, if you don't know, they are owned by the same company. So I had the chance to go back and forth. And amidst that switch between the two stores, because Garage is a little bit more casual, Dynamite is dressier, I'd have to wear, like, you have a different dress code when you go into work into the two different places. And I felt different when I dressed better. So I preferred working at Dynamite. Um, and from there, I just worked in retail up until recently. I worked at different brands, different companies. I studied in business management as well, so that it really tied in nicely with the whole business of retail and what fashion is. And that gave me the background information in terms of like, how do you do like uh, inventory tracking? How do you make sure that you hit some key performance indicators? How do you hire the best team? Which really, to this day, it's one of the most valuable skills that I have learned, how to work with people you love. And then fast forward to today, I am now starting my own fashion consulting company, and I do private styling for clients. And most of my clients are entrepreneurs, CEOs of companies.
Mm.
They need to represent their own brand, and they need to look the part for it. So I really help them by optimizing what they already have, clearing out their closet, because a lot of the time they buy from different trips, from things like that, and they get overwhelmed and feel like they don't know what to wear. So my main mission is optimize it so that they can focus on the goals that they have for their business and not have to focus on fashion.
Mm. Yeah, no, it's a good point. And especially as you move up and to the world of like nice suits and dressing a little bit more fancy than, skinny jeans and a t-shirt, it becomes that much important. Um, I am curious. So I guess really to start off this conversation, the fashion world has really escaped me because I never know like what's considered fashionable. I don't know. I mean, there's the trends, you see what's coming in, but like, never know what works and what doesn't work. And what I think works apparently doesn't work to some people. And it wasn't until I started watching Queer Eye with Ton, and I was like, oh yeah, French tuck, like let's do this. Open my mind up a little bit. So, uh, what makes something fashionable? Like how do things become trendy? How do they not like? Is it all based on personal preference, or is there general themes?
So there are fashions that come back in cycles. Right now, you're seeing a lot of early 2000s coming back in a
Mhm.
circle. Full circle of mom jeans and polo shirts, things of the sort. However, um, if you start developing your own perennial style, which is really what I try to anchor with all of my clients, you don't have to follow these trends because you now know what works for your body type, what works for your lifestyle, and what colors look best on you. And like, that will never change throughout the course of your life. It's simple guidelines that you now are aware of because it's all about raising awareness. And now that you know those guidelines, it's easier for you to shop because you know exactly what you want and what you need. It takes less time for you to get dressed in the morning because you know the type of person you are portraying when you get dressed in the morning. And you are more comfortable throughout the day because at the end of the day, when you're confident, you're comfortable.
Right. What made you make the transition to like men's fashion? I think that for a lot of men, for a lot of different reasons, whether that's just naivety or ignorance, or I reference this all the time, but I grew up in a small town, and I mean, if you've ever been to small towns, it's work boots, jeans, and flannel with a John Deere hat type thing. And people are very resistant to any sorts of fashion or expression, especially through clothes. So it must be a challenge, I would think. Why the transition to men instead of focusing on maybe women's fashion, which potentially could be easier?
So, one of the things that really made me flourish into my own personal fashion journey was my dad's perennial style. I used to make fun of him like throughout my life. I was like, "Hey, like you're always wearing the same things." Like my dad's very classic. He's wearing khakis, button-up dress shirt, and Sperry shoes. I'm sure you can already picture the type of man that he is. And that's exactly like what he's been wearing throughout the entire course of my life and much longer before. So he inspired me the most in terms of fashion sense. And I had the opportunity to work in the men's department at Nordstrom. When they were first opening up, I worked there for 2 years. And I loved tailoring items and how, again, like it's very perennial, which is honestly my favorite word is perennial today.
I was going to
Today,
ask
that's
you,
the word of the day.
when you say perennial, what do you kind of mean by that?
So it's timeless.
Okay.
Perennial is establishing such a deep sense of who you are that it is timeless and it evolves little by little, but it still has the same values at its core. Um,
Right.
yeah.
So when you were putting together these outfits for men, and you're looking for these perennial items, or I guess general guidelines for men, like how do you start determining those things? Are you like asking them questions about their like their general life? Are you trying to get to know their personality? And then like you already have this like, okay, well, I know Ryan's kind of goofy and ridiculous, so I think he would look really good in this lemon shirt. Like, is that like how you're like trying to put it together, or is there like less of a science to it and more of just like a general flair from you?
No, it's definitely a science. So first, when you go to my website and you try to work with me, you get to fill out a questionnaire. So that way I get to know you a little bit better, what you do for a living, what your hobbies are. And I dress you for function more than anything else and what your goals are. Because a lot of the times, what I've personally seen in my clients is that they have these big goals, this big vision of who they want to be, but they don't know how to get there. The way I bridge that gap is through fashion and other elements like mindset, personal training. I work with a lot of different people in the community that do that realm of improvement. But yeah, so you fill out that questionnaire, and then the first assessment is a 15-minute call to see what your biggest problem is at this point. So once we assess what that one big problem is, which honestly, there's probably maybe 5. One of them is I wore a uniform, or I've worn the same thing and I now need to get dressed for myself. I need to build everything from the ground up. The other problem is I have way too many things and I have lost my sense of style along those lines. And then a third problem is I'm currently transitioning into something else in my life. So now I need to dress for that part. And I have like a bigger ambition of where I want to be headed now. So those are a few of the reoccurring themes that I see. Other problems might entail like, I don't know what colors look best on me. Like I wore a purple the other day. I looked so washed out. I looked sick in pictures. Well, that's because you didn't take the time to assess your undertone of your skin color. So little tips and tricks like that I go over in a 15-minute call. It's super easy. And then from there, I have next step recommendations. So whether that's organizing your wardrobe and how we can go about doing that, or if you're interested in getting some new items into your wardrobe. And I always try to focus on recommending sustainable brands because that's important to me. I think it's important for the universe as a whole. So I try to share my knowledge with people in that regards.
Yeah, I think back to when I first transitioned to my first office job, and you go from young party style, just have no concept of what it's like to work in an office. And when you go in, and even me, like working in radio, it is very lax. Like there is no dress code policy really, other than don't be a slob. But like even just being like, I want to dress nicer, but like I can't afford like these nice things. It's like, what do I do? How do I make it work? And it was such a confusing time. But it leads me into what you just said about sustainable fashion, and kind of the topic I was just on is this idea of fast fashion. And that's something I don't know a lot about, but I mean, I'm aware of it from documentaries and the internet. And when you're making this transition, especially from a young person to quote unquote an adult, I mean, this really helps in a way bridge a gap because it offers nice clothes that, are okay. They don't last long, but they're okay, but they're cheap, they're inexpensive, and you can get them to help with that transition into life. But then when you learn how much damage it's doing, can you talk a little bit about what is fast fashion and how it's harming the world right now?
So fast fashion is a very big topic, but one of the things that I am most passionate about, because as I've worked in retail, I have this like acute knowledge of what fast fashion is. It's anything that, well, first of all, fashion is one of the biggest pollutants in the world. Like point blank, it's straight up bad. It pollutes water, it pollutes the air. It's a lot of moving around because you have to get clothing from place A to place B, and oftentimes to a place C now with online shopping and major distributors, things of the sort. So there is a few different ways that you can define sustainable fashion. The first one is they recycle fabrics. So there's a few companies that are now recycling fabrics, and oftentimes they have to be prime fabrics such as cottons, wools, hemp. There's other elements, but anything that it doesn't have too much elastic and fake fabrics, I would call,
Right.
is a little bit better for the world. Now, there's another part of it is that sustainable fashion may use less water or may use rainwater for the production of their clothing, which is a little bit better. So those are two elements. The third one is paying fair wages. If you're paying fair wages, you are sustainable for your employees, your workers, and everybody involved in the company. And then there's distribution channels as well. So how are you distributing those clothes worldwide? Are you doing e-commerce? I think e-commerce is actually a great, it's great to work in that industry because it goes direct to consumer most of the time. You're seeing a lot of companies on Etsy, and it's like a mom and pop shop on Etsy, like making a living wage by producing garments for others. And I think that's fabulous. Like I love mixing technology with fashion because so little story, background story. So I worked in fashion and retail, like I said, and then I did my diploma in business management. And after that, I actually ended up working in tech and finance. So those are elements that are really important for me to, you can use so much technology to better the world. And you can also take into consideration finance for every individual involved in a fashion company, but also for the consumer. I think it's really important to lower the cost per wear of an item by buying sustainably.
Interesting. Okay. So when you're saying cost per wear, it's more, it might be a little bit more expensive off the top, but like you'll be able to wear it and get more out of it than, say something that's a lot cheaper.
Absolutely. That is my number one goal, is to make people understand the cost per wear for the items they own. Maximize what you already have, repair if there's a little snag or anything like that, and maximize like the longevity of those items.
Right. And I see why that's super important, because one of my biggest frustrations is I'll buy like a nice shirt or something from, I'm not going to name the company in case whatever they hear it, but I'll buy a shirt, I like it, and I'll wear it, fits nice, and I'll wash it, and then it comes out and it's either becomes like way too expanded or becomes really shrunk, or I'm like, but I like, what's going on? I just bought it now, like it doesn't fit right, or like throughout the day, like the shirt will fit nice in the morning, then all of a sudden it just like it like balloons out throughout the day, and then like I don't want to wear it because then it looks like I'm wearing a parachute. So like it's just, and I think that's important for people to realize that I like that cost per wear kind of way you put it, and that line of thinking, because you're right, that's a lot better.
Yeah. I think of it as an investment too, like from my background in finance, like you need to think of things long term. Nothing is right here, right now. Everything has a like a future value. So if that future value is near the cost that you paid for that item, then you're bridging that gap between the cost. So let's say, for example, I buy, I don't know, a Prada purse, just to give you an example. The retail cost might be $1,600, but I wear it for 6 years consistently, and it lasts a long time. It's handmade, very high quality, has gone through a lot of quality assurance testing. That's the difference between a lot of designer goods. and fast fashion is a quality assurance behind it. They've like tried to break the item 80 times before it even gets to you.
Wow.
And yeah, and then you sell it down the road after 6 years, after you have worn it almost daily, and you sell it for, let's say, $1,000. That's still really like that. That's optimizing your money because you now have invested into a piece that you can resell for a value that's close to what you paid for, and taken into account the amount of times you have worn it.
Mm. It's
I
so
love
hard to get people on that line of thinking for everything, right? And I guess that's probably why fast fashion is so popular, because it's so hard to get our mentality out of, short term maybe gain for like long term failure, instead of being like, okay, like whatever, I'll spend $100 on this thing now or whatever the price is, and then down the line it's like it's gonna, like, we do this for everything. Our governments do it. It's like, well, we can't afford it now, even though long term it's going to be, it's going to save us money. And how, I'm curious, you have all this background in finance and business management, and like how do you get people into that mentality of thinking, along the lines the way you're thinking?
by conversation. It's as simple as that. It's why I mainly target entrepreneurs and CEOs or executives of companies, because they already have that projected thinking, like long-term thinking for projects that they might be doing, for visions that they need to accomplish, and things of the sort. So it's like, take that same mindset and now apply it to what you put on your body, on your skin, literally, because your skin is the biggest organ, right? So that's also another thing that I'm like very passionate about. Eventually, I want to make sure that natural dyes are used in more fashion, because you're putting these like fake dyes and whatnot on your skin directly. How is that impacting your health, right?
I never thought of that. No.
It's a lot of thinking that we need to do, a lot of research. I'm no scientist in the
Mhm.
field, so I'm really curious to lean on my peers and see what they find out, which is why I'm involved with a really good organization called Fashion Takes Action. They educate people in general. They do workshops. They go to schools, and they share this mission with them of, fashion needs to take action because it is the biggest pollutant in the world, and we need to stop it dead on its tracks.
It's there's so much to think about now. You've just opened my mind to a whole bunch of more things to think about, but just with fashion and clothes, but not only the climate impact, not only the exploitive nature of some of, you know, how some of these big companies treat their workers in countries like Bangladesh and India and Taiwan and all those places. But now the health impact, which is something I've never considered. And now I'm like, oh, okay, that makes a lot of sense, because I mean, we've interacted a little bit on social media. You know that mental health, I think, is really important to me. And, you know, everything we do plays into that. And it's like, how is not only the I don't know the proper word, but like how fashion can make you feel mentally and relieve stress and like elevate your mood, but now also perhaps this science impact of, does wearing cheap dyes or bad products on your skin, like, does that play a role in any of your health?
Mhm.
And now I'm just like, oh damn.
There's a lot to uncover, and I don't want to overwhelm you or your audience with it because it's all a work in progress.
Mm.
But I just want to raise awareness that it is a possibility. Who knows? Maybe somebody comes back with a research and they say all the dyes that have been used in fast fashion or not fast fashion are great for the skin and actually make it softer.
Yeah.
Who knows, right? But it's just something to ponder about, and to just like think twice before you purchase an item. Think what will be the cost per wear of this item? How often do I truly see myself wearing this? Does it match with items I already have? Does it does it reflect the future vision I have of myself?
Right.
That's, yeah.
I want to talk about in a minute. I do want to talk about matching because I'm brutal at that. But before we get there, um, you mentioned working with this organization and they do a bunch of things. Like, are people researching things like this right now? You mentioned like leaning on some of your peers, which I think is great. And you're right. Like, let's not overwhelm anyone, but like the whole goal of this podcast is to raise awareness for things like this so people can be like, oh, wow, okay, I didn't know about that. And then kind of like, get in touch or research. So what sorts of things like do we know right now about when it comes to fashion? And I know it's a big broad question, so just like answer it how you want, but like what sort of things do we already know, and what have you found out working with this organization?
So one of the main things we already know is that anything made out of or many clothes produce an thing that's called microplastics. So a lot of things like elastane, um, and other fabrics that I don't know on top of my head, but they produce these microplastics which are released when you wash your clothes, when you wear them out to the beach or anything of the sort. And then eventually they end up in our oceans, in our fish, and then back into our system. So that's one of the main elements and takeaways I've taken from the various workshops that they host. Um, Another one is that clothes used to be worn more for religious reasons and social class statuses.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a whole other part of history that I'm fascinated about and want to dig deeper into. Um, and I think it still stands true to this day. However, with that knowledge, we can now use it to our advantage so that we dress for the part that we want. I think the world is full of opportunities. It's just a matter of, are you ready to take them?
Mm. Yeah, you
And
hear that quote so much, right? The don't dress for the job you have, dress for the job you want. And some people might roll their eyes at that, but you're right. We can manipulate that psychology of class and how we portray ourselves. And you walk into a restaurant, you're wearing like a nice suit, got a nice watch, you're looking fly. People have their eyes on you. They're like, oh, I wonder what that guy does or that woman does, or I wonder, what kind of car they drive, all those different things. And it is so interesting. Is this organization Ottawa based, or is this like a global kind of initiative? Because I know you mentioned too, you're involved in a challenge. This was off mic before we got started, a color challenge or something. Like, is this something anyone can get involved with, or is it like more niche for people in the industry?
no, it's something anybody can get involved in. However, today, unfortunately, is the last day for that particular challenge.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say to sign up. I was like, no.
Yeah, but if you follow Fashion Takes Action on Instagram, um, then you'll be aware of these challenges. They also host lots of workshops and things of the sort. So to answer your question, they're based out of Toronto, but they are a global organization. Um, so this particular challenge, it's actually me, a girl from also from Ontario, and another one who's located in the UK.
Oh, wow.
So we just we exchanged our information, followed each other on Instagram because we saw we were posting about Fashion Takes Action. We connected and we were like, hey, it would be great to do a challenge where for each day of the week you wear a different color, and that encourages people to go through what they already own, and potentially even repair things that they already own of that color. For me, that was yesterday. I was wearing a green suit. It's a green suit that I actually got custom made last year before the pandemic. However, somehow I managed to rip one of the seams. But yesterday I repaired it because it was the only green thing I had in my wardrobe. And I was like, what a perfect occasion. So yeah, it encourages people to do that. And then you just post up on Instagram your outfit of the day. You tag Fashion Takes Action and the FTA color challenge. That's what we're calling it. And there's going to be other challenges. Like, this is just the beginning. We just started as ambassadors for, like, volunteer ambassadors for this program maybe 2 months ago. So I know more interesting initiatives are going to come out of it for sure.
I think that's one of the, I think, coolest things about the way social media has connected people from around the world and uniting them with common goals that you can, meet someone you might never meet in real life. You might, which would be fun too, but like, you both have this shared passion about fashion and sustainable fashion, and you can just meet them and do this challenge, and there you go. Do you find too, with like a group like this, like, do you pick up different things? Because, like, I assume, like, fashion is very different and subjective depending where you are in the world. Like, are you picking up things that you're like, oh, I think that would really work in Canada? Which is funny because I think of Ottawa as like a very fashion conservative, city. Like, right? You never, like, if you go to Montreal, you see people very, like, flashy, they're looking good. In Ottawa, it's exactly that khakis and, like, dress shirt type look in the government. Like, do you find things that you can, like, bring back to Ottawa that, like, might work?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a big traveler. This is actually the first full winter I've spent in Canada
I'm so sorry.
in like a few years. It's all good. I survived. I survived winter 2020-21. So yeah, no, I think traveling allows you to bring another element to your own sense of culture, which then translates into whether, like, that's the music you consume, the art you admire, or the fashion that you start wearing. I think of fashion as an art. I think it's
Mm,
like an element of art. Every single day, you pick the colors that you want to, dress yourself with and artify yourself with. Um, and not everybody's gonna like the same things as you. It's very subjective, just like art. So um, I have high hopes for Ottawa. I think there's more and more people that are coming from elsewhere as well.
yeah,
So
that's
that
true.
brings to the element of diversity. And I love that because I think that's important. You need to find your own sense of style and not copy what somebody else is doing. But in order to find your own sense of style, you need to take elements from different people that you like. So it's a little bit of get inspired, but inspire yourself.
Yeah, that is such a great point. It comes with diversity and different people coming in, so it's not, old boring Bob in the corner cubicle, like, setting the dress code. You know what I mean? Like, it's such a good point, and I love that. Because, like I said, like, right, like I brought up about being in that small town, I wasn't exposed to a lot, but I certainly was not exposed to any sort of fashion, and that's lasted with me throughout my years until very recently, where I say explore a little bit more, but really it's still very blue jeans, black shirt, like, but it's just different black shirts now instead of the same one. Um, but even not experiencing at a young age, and if anyone did try to dress in any sort of way that was against the norm, they would be made fun of, they would be bullied, they would be called derogatory terms. Especially, I don't know how old you are, but I'm 28, turning 29. So when I was going to high school in, like, grade 7, grade 8, like, South Park had that episode about metrosexuals, and, like, anyone who wanted to wear pink or wear something that wasn't just normal, like, would be relentlessly bullied. And I think that, like, that scared anyone or everyone away from any sort of fashionable expression. And now, like, for me, it's totally lasted as a self-conscious thing throughout till now. Do you ever feel, or do you ever see, like, when you're having fun with clothing, or people, or having fun and expressing themselves through clothing, that even now, when we think that the world is so much more open, that they face a lot of, like, a ridicule or bullying or harassment?
It depends how secure you are within yourself. Like,
Right.
I think that's very valid to be scared to try new things in fashion because we have that trauma from childhood. Um, Without going too much into details, like in my childhood, I was bullied because I had a French accent. I didn't speak English until I worked in retail. And I was constantly changing schools because of that.
Mm.
Um, but then I have the biggest blessing in my family. Like, they are amazing. My mom is a psychologist and she knows how to deal with me. So she gave me the confidence and always told me, like, does it really matter what other people are saying if you are happy at your core? Like,
Mm.
that's what you should focus on. Focus on what makes you happy. um, One of the best conversations that I overheard my mom having with my grandma was in the time where I actually didn't know what I was going to study. Um, and my grandma was a little nervous. It's just how she is. She's a little bit of an anxious personality. And she's not going to be a lawyer. She's not going to be a doctor. Like, what is she going to be? Where is she going to go to school? Like, she needs to start in like 6 months. She needs to be applying and all of that. Um, and my mom told her, if my daughter wants to be a bus driver, I just pray to God that she is the happiest bus driver
Mm.
on earth. And that really set the tone for me to not be scared of failure, to always risk more in life, and to focus on happiness as a whole. Not just within me, but also of my community. I'm always looking to provide value to others and make them happy. If I see someone like tugging at their clothes and be uncomfortable and yada yada, like, that's not fashion. Like, follow your own rhythm and flow of fashion. Make your own rules and break them and make them again.
Mm. I like that. It's a good one. That's a good one for so many different areas of life. Make your rules and break them.
Mhm.
I'm gonna copyright that a little bit from you, and I'll credit you. Don't worry, but I love it. Um, so we're going into spring. I know it's a pandemic. Going into summer. What sorts of trends are going on right now? I know you mentioned that mom jeans are back and polos. Generation Z is relentlessly bullying millennials on side parts and skinny jeans. Especially for people in their late 20s, early 30s who are, I guess, not express, like, they're not able to always wear clothes to like go to the office anymore. Like, what sorts of things are you looking at, without giving too much away, of course, because we want people to go to you, but what are some things that like you're looking towards in the next little bit in terms of what's going to work, what's going to be fun, just generally?
Yeah, well, my main pillar for me, for my personal style, is chic comfort. So those are words that for the longest time I had on a post-it in my wardrobe so that I could remember what my goal was. To be comfortable but chic. And I think that's what it is right now as well. It's like, you want to be comfortable. Let's be real. We are in a pandemic and we don't want to be going towards like high fashion. Ball gowns are like out of the window. So we want to be comfortable. But how do you dress comfortably, and also, you know, ambitiously? Because I want to bring that ambition out of people. I think it's a beautiful creative time to be in. As much as the pandemic sucked, I think it brought a lot of blessings in disguise, one of them being creativity for a lot more things in life.
Mm-hmm.
Taking the time to slow down is often necessary. And we haven't done that in a long time since technology has been brought on board,
Mm-hmm.
right? So let me show you my outfit. I know this is a podcast, but let me explain
We
it.
can see it on YouTube.
Perfect. So I'm literally just wearing a black joggers with a black tank top that is made out of bamboo modal. So it's very flexible, breathable, and comfortable. And then I topped it off with a blazer that's a little bit oversized. So very simple, very comfortable. It looks great on camera,
Mm-hmm.
but it also makes you look chic. And comfort, chic and comfort. Again, you know, like you have to find these words that resonate the most with you and then establish your style based on that.
Right. When you say chic, what does that mean to you?
For me, chic is something that just looks elegant, you know? It's like,
Okay.
you know, where did you get that blazer? Where did you get that look? But it's like, I don't know, I've had these sweatpants for like years, maybe decades. This shirt I got on a trip in Europe, and then this blazer I got, God knows I've had it for a few years as well.
I mentioned I love the blazer because it's like fun and funky, but like you're right, like it looks it does, like it draws your eye, like you're like, oh, like that's cool, but it's got fun little patterns and I love that type of stuff. I want to talk a little bit about comfort because that is so important. And especially for someone like me, I have a very awkward body size. I'm very heavy in the shoulders and chest, but I kind of got skinny legs, and you know, like it's hard to find things that make me feel good and fit well.
Mhm.
When we're talking about comfort, what sorts of fabrics, what sorts of things are we really like looking for in general because I know everyone's different and comfort's going to mean something different to everybody. But I mean, comfort in terms of like the material it's made from, comfort for the terms, like that's going to be flexible for you. Like the sweatpants and the shirt, how they look nice, but they're also very breathable, flowy. Like you're not like restricted being like, yeah, I'm super comfy. What sorts of things should people just in general look for when they want to dress nice, but for comfort as well?
One of my favorite fabrics is bamboo rayon. So bamboo is great in terms of breathability, but also because bamboo grows really quickly. After a few years, it just shoots all the way up, and you don't need to completely like uproot it. You can just cut it, so then it grows again, which is a wonderful thing. There's hemp. Oh my God, so many new products are coming out of hemp, and I'm so excited to see what people design out of that. And like, these are still niche things, I would say. There's more and more companies that are out there in the public, and you can find a lot of them at Nordstrom, for example, so like higher end retailers. And a lot of them don't break the bank. If you think long term, it's like, okay, I can't afford a $40 t-shirt because I'm going to have it for 10 years, which is the case for this shirt. I've had it for a long, long, long time. I bought this at Terra 20 when like I was in college. So it's been a while. And yeah, those are some of the fabrics. For one of the things that people don't know is that merino wool is actually very good for sportswear. So for athletic wear, because it is breathable, it dries really quickly, and it's how do you say this? Like antibacterial. So it doesn't hold on to like sweat as much as another fabric would, like a
Very
synthetic
interesting.
fabric. So,
And I don't think anyone would ever equate wool to being good athletically.
yeah. But you're seeing more and more companies. Like I know Under Armour has a really good, like an undershirt for skiing that's made out of merino wool. There is a company called Outbound Merino, I think, or Outbound Wool, that does like all your basics in merino wool. There's more and more companies that are like gravitating towards this, and I'm really happy that it's also becoming more mainstream. Like I just mentioned, Under Armour, like that's awesome that they're doing this. North Face is another company that also evolves a lot with their technology and different fabrics. So, you know, it's not necessarily like look for the little mom and pop shop. Support those, they're good and they're the best thing for the economy on a financial level, but also look for the bigger companies that have these initiatives, but be mindful that it's only a few products and not their entire line.
Right. Okay. Like I said, I want to talk about matching a little bit.
Okay.
Because that's something I don't understand at all. I don't know what looks good with what. People tell me I look good in blue. So that's always nice to hear. I don't particularly wear a lot of blue. So like what types of things, like how do you know if you don't know things that match, things that complement each other? You know what I mean? Like when you have no idea about any of this stuff and you want a basic knowledge, like how do you put that together?
So I actually just took out this color wheel.
Oh, look at that.
This is probably the best $5 investment I've made. I've had it for, I don't know, since high school, probably. And this is a great tool. You can also find it on the internet. Like you just Google color wheel. All right. So first you have what you call a complementary color. So you say you look good in blue. So a complementary color to blue would be orange, which makes sense why blue looks so good on you, right?
It's science, people.
Yeah. And then let's say you wanted to pair a blue shirt with like one of these shades of orange. You have multiple shades, or you could also go the tertiary route. Let me give this a little spin. So you have blue on this side, and then you have this type of red orange, and then yellow. So if you were to work with 3 different elements, let's say an outfit like what you're wearing, a dress shirt, a t-shirt, and pants, 3 pieces, you could make your decision based on these colors. Yeah. And then it also, like, I love color theory and the elements that it brings out within you. So yellow, like I'm wearing right now, is seen as the color of happiness.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's very
you
bright. It definitely, when you see it, like I was like, oh, like hello.
exactly. I probably seem happier than I truly am. On a gloomy day, wear yellow because that'll make you happier instantaneously. Red is the color of power. Red is actually my favorite color. I don't know. I love wearing it. I love how I can just walk into a room and feel confident. I don't have to say a single word to anyone, but it's just that aura that it gives you. Blue is the color of calmness. So if you want to like just calm yourself down a little bit one day, or you want to portray like serene aspects of your life, like you want to be more centered, it's a good color to wear. Green is the color of groundedness. So if you want to feel more grounded, more connected to nature, green is a good color to wear. I used to wear green a lot. I was working in Toronto for a little bit, and I missed the forest. And so one day I got myself a forest green sweater, and I was just like cuddling it and made me feel like I was near the forest again. So it's little elements like this that trick the brain, and it goes into like psychology and behavior.
I absolutely love that. And you're right. Like that's not, I don't know. Like I think some people might think that's hokey pokey, but that totally resonates with me and is so true. And we were talking a little bit about how clothes and color can elevate your mood, or like when you're feeling good, when you're feeling confident, it's like a totally new you. Like you could walk into any room and you're just like, what's up? Like you go into a presentation, you're like, here we go.
Yeah.
It is so true that the clothes and the colors and everything really like speak volumes and can pick you up and can give off what you're trying to portray. And I that's kind of like when we started talking on social media, that's like really where like I was like, no, this would actually be really cool because it's so true. And it's something that so many, especially men, do not consider or ever even talk about. We do not talk about fashion. We never walk into a room and be like, hey man, really like your clothes. Like that, like it's not a thing. Sometimes it is, but like really it's not. And like that's why I was like, this would, I think, just be so eye-opening to a lot of people on the potential. And like you said, it's a gloomy day. You're feeling a little down. I mean, everything right now going on with the world, like it can be tough. And sometimes just doing something as simple as putting on something bright and fun, it's not going to cure you, but it could be enough to like just kind of give you a little boost, just put a little pop in your step, you know?
Exactly. Like that's a good point, actually. I do fashion not because I think it will cure the world's sorrows, but because I think it's a step to getting
Mm,
there. And if you take multiple little steps, eventually you achieve your distance, right? So
mm.
it's not like
You have a lot of great little like metaphor liner things where you're just saying, I'm just like, yeah. Sorry to interrupt you.
I just saw you're like, woo.
Yeah, I hear it. I'm just like, yeah, yeah.
Maybe a Bousquet book will come out one day. Um, I'm a big creator. I love creating different things. And that's why like fashion stimulates me in that sense, because it's one thing that helped me accomplish many other goals,
Mm,
which is what I'm trying to help other people do. Um, for me, it's like that's actually how I ended up working in finance at a very young age in a board of directors position. Um, that's how I ended up working in tech and pitching business opportunities to people. Again, from a pretty young age. I mean, I'm under 30, so I've accomplished all these things
mhm,
before 3 decades of my life. Um, and I've seen it like, and I've seen it help other people too. So I had a lot of managers, a lot of like the owner of a company that I worked at would come to me for fashion advice. And then he would come and tell and report back to me the next day. And he's like, yeah, I freaking killed that pitch. It was amazing. Thank you for that Thai recommendation. It made the whole like switch. And I was like, it's all the little things. It's all the little things that help you achieve your biggest, greatest goals. One way is fashion. Another one that I love is psychology. Another
mm,
one is fitness, nutrition, and personal finance is another. Um, I think it's really important to touch on personal finance when it comes to your fashion journey, to your fitness journey, but to your life journey as a whole. Um, you need to be in a comfortable place so that you can be confident in life.
mhm. No, it's such a great point. And, as someone who advocates and speaks about mental health, a big message from me and a lot of other people is, it's not just one thing that's going to make you feel better, or it's not going to like really elevate your life. It's all these different things. And that's again going back to the little thing you said, it's all those little steps. It's like, yes, so true. All the little steps, right? It is all those little things that are going to, again, it might not cure you, but it's definitely going to bring you to a place that is better than not doing anything. And that's like, I love this conversation and now putting fashion and my fashion choices into that mix of what I'm doing. And like I said right off the top, at the beginning of the pandemic was like the worst part, one of the worst parts of my life. I then went through a breakup of my long-term girlfriend, so it was like even worse. And part of it wasn't everything, but just getting dressed again and not sitting in my shorts and pajamas and whatever, working, getting dressed, having a morning routine, doing my hair for whatever hair I have, which is not much, but you know what I mean? Like that helped just pick me up a little bit. Um,
Mhm.
and that's, something that now I'm like, okay, yeah. So now it's part of the routine.
Yeah.
So I think that's great. And I did want to touch on, for people who are listening, I was blown away by this color wheel thing. And I think that is so cool. So if you weren't watching it, you can go to YouTube and watch it. Or like she said, Google the color wheel, because it like literally blew my mind.
Yeah, super easy tool to use. And
And
there's
I'm like,
videos about it, color theory. And, if you have any questions, I'm also always open to answering on Instagram or my website, anywhere.
beautiful. Before I let you go, because I wanted to touch on this subject because it's become a big thing in my life. When I'm a big transition I made this year is like talking to teens and young men about healthy expression, dismantling things among toxic masculinity. And one of the big thing that made me really want to tackle this problem is when Harry Styles was in that fashion shoot wearing the dress, and how it angered so many men. And I'm like, who cares? Like this guy, he's looking so good. He could have pretty much anybody he wants. So there's, he's not doing it for that, but like to call him names and be like, women hate that. Like, it's like, no, Harry Styles is doing just fine. Thank you. It just opened my eyes to how men are so closed off to expressing ourselves. And I wanted to talk to you about how fashion is being redefined for men, right? Like we're used to suits, we're used to the suit and tie, jeans and a t-shirt, but now we're seeing as society opens up, gender is no longer binary and people can be very fluid and expressive with what they wear. To you, how is like fashion being redefined? Like, we're not saying everyone has to wear a dress if they don't want to, especially as a man, but like it's becoming okay. So how are we redefining fashion for men, and like where do you see the future kind of going with things like this?
So there's more and more awareness toward what we call androgynous fashion. So androgynous being like fluid between the sexes. I don't think that, when you look at Harry Styles, for example, that's a great example. Is he looking to please the masses or just a few people that he truly cares about and to make an impact on the world? I think his biggest goal is to make an impact on the few people that are admiring that, rather than listening to the masses who may say like, oh, that's disgusting, like whatever they may say or shout. And that's exactly the attitude that you need to bring in whenever you get dressed. It's like you want quality over quantity. You want to dress for yourself, first of all, always for yourself. But like, who are you trying to please as well? Like, it's a two-way communication, right? So it's like, think of the receiver as well. Like, if you're trying to open a bank account and like ask for a loan, for example, then you might want to dress the part for it. But fluidity in fashion, I think, is very relevant to today's socioeconomy almost. And yeah, if it makes you happy, wear it. Honestly, that's baseline. Just if it makes you happy, wear it. If you think about it, clothing is just a piece of fabric. What defines that fabric is the maker. So it's like,
see, there's another one.
It's like if it's a dress, if it's a shirt, it's like it comes down to like it's all the same piece of fabric, So just wear it if it makes you happy, and people will judge. But those people are bored or insecure. If you're not satisfied with yourself, that's when you start judging others. So, yeah.
No, you're so right, and that's what I was like, why do you care so much? Like, if he's happy, if he's feeling good, I mean, I think Harry Styles is the envy of almost every man in a lot of cases, with that confidence, like that true confidence in who he is. I mean, I don't know him. He could struggle behind the scenes, but he portrays confidence.
Yeah.
And but he also does it in an elegant way that like is with inclusion and with respect and with elevating others. Like, it's not a confidence of being like, I'm cocky and better than you. It's like a confidence of like, he also brings you up in another way. And I find him so fascinating in that respect, and in a lot of ways, like a role model for a lot of men on ways to healthy, like express yourself in a healthy way.
Yeah. And I think like his vision and the vision of the people that have been able to shift mountains is that a lot of our generation, I would say, is like trying to please the masses, but that's not how you get real results. So focus on the one person you're trying to please. The first one should be you. The second one is like your peers or whoever's around you that will encourage you and support you. And if you don't have that support system, break up with your friends. Become friends with us.
Yeah.
We'll encourage you.
So true. Listen, this was, I say it on a lot of podcasts, but like this was super great. It blew every expectation I had, and I loved every minute of it. So if people want to get in touch with you, they want to, you know, get a consultation, explore your business and what you're trying to accomplish, where do people find you?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram as Camila.Bousquet. My website for Bousquet Fashion is bousquetfashion.com. And if ever you want to connect on LinkedIn, on Facebook, anything of the sort, Camila Bousquet. So that's Camila. My last name is Bousquet, Bousquet. Think of it as a bouquet of flowers with an S in the middle.
I love that. Camila, this was, again, so great. Thank you so much. It was a real treat.
It was awesome talking to you.